Just a Job is the podcast for the modern woman to redefine what success looks like. We highlight real women and their real stories.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Just a Job with Sarah and Ellen. It's so funny starting that off because you and I do our sing-songy hello in such different ways.
It's just kind of like you got to break the barrier of like weirdness because it's just as soon as you press record, it's like, oh, I have different inflections in how I form my words now.
Yeah. And if I ever approached somebody on the sidewalk and I was like, hello, this is not how I talk normally. This is not how I talk normally. Welcome back to another episode. We are so excited to have you here today. It is our daily stand-up, and Ellen didn't come prepared with notes, which is unlike her. Welcome to the Cool Kids Club over here.
Wow, I'm slowly losing my control. Very
feels
zen
good,
today.
doesn't it? Doesn't it?
I think so.
Okay.
Ask me again in 10 minutes.
No kidding. Agenda. Ellen, where do you want to start?
The agenda. Thanks for the gorgeous intro. That was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
We've got our weekly stand-up. We're going to talk about the things we're doing this week, the things we're doing next week, fun things, good things, bad things. Maybe not the bad things. Maybe just the good things.
Just highlight reel.
Yeah, highlight reel only. Remember, we're empaths, and that is something we cannot share, and that's okay. Sarah, kick us off. Give us your weekly stand-up. What's going on, sister?
Let's see. This week, I got to join the Half Fun Employment Group.
Welcome. It's a wild world over here. Let me just open my arms.
Okay. Yeah. So when I say half, I have been doing consulting for two businesses and essentially working part-time for both. They're in working a full 40 hours a week. And one of the companies has decided that it no longer serves them to have my role, which is totally fine. And initially when I got this news, I was very much in the state of like, it was time. I'm re-energized. And I was able to come to that conclusion because, as you'll hear talking in today's episode with Allison, I have a job that I'm very energized by. And I think when you have that comparison of the two, it's very easy to let go of the one job that just wasn't really giving me that like fuel. So although I am fucking panicking a little bit internally, it'll be okay. And I'm just going to give myself, as telling Ellen, this is the first time in my career of working full time that I've had any sort of any break. Like in between any jobs, I never took time. It was like quit on Friday or be done on Friday, start on Monday. So maybe this will be a nice warm welcome. I've told Ellen I'm going to start reading books, and I'm going to read books about how to relax.
I've already sent you a couple of TikTok recommendations on relaxing books, so I'll keep sending those your way.
Oh gosh. So anyways, that was this week. Going into next week, I can share this because it's Monday, but we have a set of friends that are getting engaged this weekend, which we're recording this on Thursday. I know. So we're going to DC, and I love surprises. I love receiving surprises. I love giving surprises. And this is a massive surprise. Basically, our friend has pulled off this like 4-month plan for our friends to get engaged in DC with the cherry blossoms, and then we're gonna all meet up at the bar. And she's from Minnesota, so all of her family's traveling in along with his family's from St. Louis. So it's just gonna be this big festive happy weekend, and I am like fully prepared to cry and just have an amazing time. So this comes out on Monday, like I said, so now I can speak this into existence.
Yeah.
And I was like, should I be worried if she says no? It's not happening. That is not happening. She's going to say yes. So anyways, that is my last week in next week. What about you, Ellen?
Well, first I have a couple of thoughts. How nice that you get to celebrate like an engagement with friends. That's just like, ugh.
I know. It's been a while.
Fun thing. Yeah, it has. Oh, I hope you have a great time. That sounds the cherry blossoms.
I know. I'm excited for that too.
Oh, if you need a song to listen to during your travels, Cherry Blossom by Casey Musgraves. It's a good one.
Ooh.
And then with the job search, it sucks, but I feel like I need to step up to the plate and be the friend that you were to me when I was going through all of the nonsense. And so I'm like, I'm here, I'm ready. I feel like I have the tool book like ready to go. I have all of the advice, all of the support, like all of the things. And
Good, because
I
buckle up,
think
baby. I
I
think
get it.
of the two, you're much better at maintaining your emotions. Maybe you don't
Oh,
realize it. Um, but yeah, be prepared for some tears, Ellen, and
you know
podcast
what?
listeners.
It's okay. Oh my gosh. And honestly, I think like as much as this sucks and it's just like losing a job, whether how much you do or do not like it, sucks. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's just a not fun experience to go through. And especially like on the earlier side of your career, it feels kind of like a gut punch, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure. And I think for you, it's going to be, you're going to look back on this and be like, I'm so glad this happened. Like, I really think great things are ahead for you. And it's going to be, this is going to be the right move for you. While it doesn't
Thanks,
feel
Ellen.
great at the time, I really think something's great is going to find it will find you. I know it
Yeah.
will.
Maybe I'll be able to
So
accomplish everything on my board, on my vision board now.
there you go. Oh, I like that. I like that.
Thanks, Ellen. Okay, your
Of
week.
course. This week, so talk about weird timing because
I know, I'm like,
Sarah,
why did you make me start? We should have started with
I
your
don't
good
know.
news.
I didn't think about that until now, honestly.
It was like wah wah. But
If
anyways, this does not
anything,
take away from the exciting news.
we've got balance here, if anything, right? So timing is a funny thing. And while our hearts go out to Sarah and send all the love and support, um, I got a job finally, you guys. I officially got the offer today, Thursday. It's for that one that I had to make that crazy presentation for. So
Yeah,
thank God.
God forbid you ever have to do that again.
Totally. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a contract role. It's just for a couple of months, which I think is going to be honestly great. Like, it's a
Mm-hmm.
great career move for me. The company is huge. The benefits and the possibilities are kind of like whatever I make them to be, which I think is going to be really great for me. So, we were talking about this earlier, but I think one thing that I am looking forward to the most is learning how a global big company operates and kind of what that is like. But then also,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a working interview. I mean, like we're dating each other essentially. And at the end, I get to decide
Yep.
whether or not I'd like to continue or not. So that's really cool. And I'm excited about that. And I finally feel like I can now relax. Like, again, I haven't been working since December. And while that sounds lovely to be able to have that time off, I've truly not been able to like decompress and relax. It feels like, honestly, and I don't start for a couple of weeks. And I'm so grateful because now I feel like I can relax. So
Mm-hmm.
that is what's next for me. The next couple of weeks is truly like chilling. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to go get my nails done. I can't even remember the last time I went to go do that. So looking forward to that. And then next week is Tim's birthday, and he is turning
Oh yeah, big man
30.
30.
Yes. And I'm just so excited for him. And we were kind of talking about how it was kind of like not a fun time to be celebrating because, like, the job hunting and pressure was kind of at an all-time high, and it kind of feels weird to be celebrating. And but I want to make sure I can celebrate him, but he doesn't want to celebrate too much, and like, with the
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
situation I'm in. So I'm really glad that the timing aligned where we can like go all out and really celebrate him. So that's going to be really fun. Next week, spring is in like full swing here, and it has been absolutely gorgeous. I sat outside and worked almost all morning yesterday.
Mm.
So I'm looking forward to like more time outside and just kind of taking in the really nice weather. So that's kind of what's new and exciting with me. Again, I didn't have notes today, so I'm going off the cuff. Ooh, look at me.
Oh my gosh. Welcome, like I
Oh.
said. Well, that's exciting. I know that, like, obviously I told you and I was like, I don't want this to overshadow. I am so excited for you. And I hope that like the
Oh,
next
I
few
know you are.
weeks allow you to have that opportunity to like relax and settle in and wipe your hands clean of
Mhm.
the last few months, and also to be a chance to reflect. Like,
Yeah.
on it being super uncomfortable and how much you were able to grow because of it. And um there's so much that you probably learned in those months. So it's like
Sure.
working through that and recognizing what you're capable of. And
Hmm.
also too, maybe just having a margarita and sitting on a patio at 10 a.m. because you can.
You know, there is a place down the street from us that does happy hour from 3 to 5, and it's approaching that time. So I think
So
that might be my
I think
afternoon today.
I think that's the cue to wrap this up. So we're heading into Allison's episode, and you'll hear at the beginning, Allison and I have a very close relationship, and she's an amazing person, amazing mother, role model, business owner, all of it, and she has some really great takeaways. So thanks so much for checking it out, and we'll see you in Allison's episode. Hey everyone, today we have Allison, ye owner of UpNext, with us. She is heading straight to your buds from Boston, and one of my now new favorite places to go to. I'm excited to get back in the spring. I got a chance to go in the fall. But anyways, enough about me. Allison, thank you for joining us and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
I am pumped. So it's a little bit of background. Allison and I know each other. We work together. Allison is one of my bosses, and she's the best boss ever. She owns UpNext, like I said, based out of Boston, and we'll get into it. But I have the opportunity to work with Allison and the amazing team at UpNext as the project manager. And I am just having a dang blast. It is an absolute gem of a company to work with and work for. And I'm excited to share Allison's story of how everything came to be with UpNext. But before we jump into that, Allison, young Allison, what did she want to be when she grew up?
This answer surprises me even now. I wanted to be an actress. I thought I had a future on stage,
Mm.
and that couldn't have been further from the truth. So it took me a little while to realize it. I think I actually always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but it just wasn't in my immediate consciousness.
Mhm.
It was my hobby.
Was there a
Actress.
particular actress that you like drew inspiration from? You're like, when I grow up, I want to be this person.
This answer would be even more embarrassing, I feel like. Oh, in middle school, I spent a lot of time watching Alicia Silverstone and Clueless, but I wouldn't put her up there on the acting creds. No, I really enjoyed musical theater until it mattered if you could sing or act. And then I,
Mm,
had some realizations and moved on with my life and found other ways
Got it.
to express myself creatively.
We
totally.
appreciate the arts.
Yeah. Yes. It's probably funny because there's a lot of similarities between being an entrepreneur and being an actor. You're very like go getter. You don't mind conflict. You appreciate being in front of people. So I see the resemblance, I think.
You're right. That's a good
Yeah.
point. There's a few
Yeah.
parallels.
You
Mhm.
sing in your own tune, if you will.
Yeah.
So you wanted to be an actress, and then at what point were you like, maybe this isn't for me, this is the path that I want to go down? Maybe like high school, college. Talk us through that timeline.
Definitely high school. I abandoned ship on the acting career and started leaning into my entrepreneurial ideas. And I was really into fashion. So, fashion and entrepreneurship married for me in college, but I was very focused on sort of what career paths I could carve out in that realm. I got on the buying track, I worked in boutiques, I got lots of different experiences in retail and explored all those paths in a multitude of ways, a long and windy road that
Mhm.
led me here, I would say.
Talk to us a little bit about your college experience. Did you go in with the idea of having one career path and graduate with a different idea? What was your experience like?
So I went in as an undeclared major, spent a little time sort of getting to know what my options were, and ended up doing a dual major in communications, which was pretty general, business communications. And then I created my own individualized major in something that I called fashion entrepreneurship. So that's where those two worlds really came together. So entrepreneurship, those pieces were easy to pull together on campus. I went to UConn for undergrad. So there were plenty of business classes, there were plenty of things that I could work with, but fashion was not something covered on campus, except through one professor who had dabbled in the fashion industry before turning to agriculture, and she became my mentor. And then I studied abroad at the London College of Fashion and got all of my actual fashion credits in and had a really amazing experience diving into that world abroad, but it was definitely piecemealed together. I had to figure it out as I went to find something that was the right fit.
That's
London.
Yeah, I'm
Amazing.
jealous. That sounds really nice. What a cool experience too. Like it sounds like you kind of made it up as you went and without that path being laid for you, you kind of just made your own way and figured it out as you went. And I love that you were able to have the experience in London and have that not only a broad piece, but then sounds like that was kind of that missing puzzle piece to that wasn't available at UConn. So how cool that you were able to find the way to blend those all together to essentially piecemeal your way into making a degree for yourself.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
I
definitely
wonder,
uncharted, but
Hmm.
helpful if you can tap into that type of resource on campus.
Yeah.
do you know if UConn has like a fashion, I don't know, major or additional classes? Since if not, you should go back and
That
teach.
Yeah.
is a great
It's very
question. That is a
serendipitous.
really great question. I should look into it. I did have one student who is a couple of years behind me create the same major. So I sort of mentored her through that process. I think she became an artist. I think she's in the art world now, but I'm not sure if there were others. I'll have to check.
Go get a plaque on a building somewhere.
Yes.
Invented, created this college.
Hmm.
So, fashion, you graduate. What's that first job out of school, and what was that experience like for you making that transition?
First job out of school was working for the TJX company. So that's the corporate parent company for TJ Maxx, Marshalls, and Home Goods, and those big box chains off price. It was very corporate. It was exactly what I thought I wanted to do. I only applied for one job. I sought them out at a career fair. They're headquartered just outside Boston, so I knew I could move back near home and have that that location within reach. It felt like a dream come true, but it was definitely where my corporate vision started to fall apart for my life. So it was a quick reality check, I would say. And I spent several years there going through their programs and understanding what it would take to become a buyer, which is what my goal was. I wanted to be a retail buyer and travel to New York and, you know, predict what the trends would be and be part of that world. But that's not exactly how it works. You have to go through planning and allocation, which is the numbers side. You're doing all of the grunt work for the department. You have to work your way up through these positions. And it's a really big company with a lot of different layers and hierarchy. And it was like a slap in the face to a creative entrepreneur. So yeah, it was an
That would
interesting
be,
experience.
yeah, that
Yeah.
would be tough because maybe it's just in my head. I'm thinking like, oh, fashion. It's, very fun and you're working with clothing and probably a lot of women, and so I can imagine that there's this like certain idea of what the energy and the culture and the space would be like, and then to have it land in the opposite camp would probably be a little bit difficult, especially
Right.
fresh out of college when it's first corporate job and making
Mhm.
that transition just in your own personal life and then the corporate career.
Mhm.
Were
Exactly.
there any moments like while working there that you were like, okay, I'm going to stick it out. This is what I want to do. Or did you kind of pretty immediately know that it wasn't necessarily where you wanted to see your career?
Oh, I tried very hard to stick it out. I had convinced myself that this was the right place for me, that there was no reason that I wouldn't be able to cut it, that this was just such an ideal trajectory. And I did get to work with amazing brands and some really amazing people and some really jaded people. Uh, but there were some silver linings. So I met my business partner there for my first real entrepreneurial endeavor, and she and I connected over the cubicle wall, basically spending
Mm-hmm.
time sort of daydreaming together about what we might be able to do outside of our 9 to 5, and ended up launching a company called Polished, which was wardrobe advising. So in the fashion space, taking people shopping and editing their closets. And we were experts at off-price shopping. So regardless of their budget, we could bring them around and get them $1 million wardrobe. And so that was an amazing experience. It was really incredible to meet someone who had that shared passion and to go through the process of ideating together and building our first brand and website and sales pitch, getting clients, building collaborations, doing fashion shows, all of these things. I actually did that on the side for 10 years over the course of multiple corporate jobs. So I would say, although TJX and corporate buying didn't end up being the right path for me, I definitely came away with some really valuable experiences. And I would say that's true about every piece of my journey to this point.
What was that like having full-time jobs? It sounds like multiple transitions that you made, but also having your polished business on the side. Sounds like that's where your passion was. What was it like having two kind of full-time jobs at the same time and what that balance was like?
I absolutely loved it. I think for better or for worse, my entrepreneurial streak has always been my hobby of choice. I don't play a lot of sports. I don't have a lot of, other extracurriculars because I found so much joy in working on business ideas and connecting with people over that. And so it was really fulfilling for me to have that outside of work. And I don't think I would have stayed on a corporate path for quite as long without that piece of the puzzle. So for me, it was absolutely the right move. And I started weaving it in more and more into my life. There was a point at which I had a job offer that wasn't an offer that I could live off of. And I was really interested in the role, but I negotiated a hybrid schedule. So I only worked for them 4 days a week so I could work on polished 1+ day a week. And so I sort of found ways of fitting it in a non-traditional format.
That's
Yeah, I love that.
genius. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're able
Do
to
you
still get that experience on the side and also take the time to pour back into your own business as well. That's awesome.
Do you still, even to this day, offer services if like a friend or a
No.
family member was to, she's like, with what
All
time?
done.
Fun with what time? But two, I'm not in that world anymore. You have to really keep up on trends and be tuned into exactly what resources are available to give the best client experience. So I have had people come to me looking for a stylist that I can refer, asking if I'm still in that line of work, and that door has closed, and I feel really good about it too.
Good.
It's okay to have moved on and found something else that I'm passionate about entrepreneurially.
That's true. So you're at TJX, you have polished. What either pushed or pulled you out and into your next full-time job?
The realization that becoming a buyer wasn't around the corner, that I was stuck in sort of this non-creative space for the foreseeable future, and that I wasn't enjoying my life, that it wasn't fulfilling me in the ways that it needed to. I started my dream state used to be that I would close my eyes and I would see like rows of clothes and accessories, and I had this very like creative mind, and that all got replaced by sort of like matrix numbers on a black screen, because that is the vehicle that we use to ship product to all of the different stores in the chain. So I could feel myself getting sort of taken by this corporate life that wasn't the right fit for me. And so I started seeking out other opportunities and realizing that it just wasn't right. And also seeing a lot of my classmates, if you will, because they do a class setting for the training and orientation for the first 6 weeks. There's a lot of attrition. There just were a lot of people leaving and pursuing other paths. And it opened my eyes to the fact that I didn't have to commit to this for life, that there were other things I could go out and do. So I think my next opportunity was as a buyer with very unglamorous product. I ended up working on product development and buying for uniforms. So learned the actual skills behind becoming a buyer and got that experience, but with about as dry a category as it gets. So I think that was the shortest stint on my resume, if you will. I was there less than a year before I found another buying opportunity at a startup. That was a really big company, another corporate setting. This next foray into buying was for a parenting company. So it was a business model. Unfortunately, they don't exist anymore, but it married classes with products. So for preschool, pregnancy through preschool was their phase of life. And so it was sort of this centralized model, a bit ahead of its time, called ISIS parenting, where essentially you could come and you could have this whole childbirth class experience or a new baby course experience, and then also shop for all of the products that were recommended throughout that phase of life.
Okay.
Smart.
And so I was responsible for buying, half the categories in the store. And that was really a lot of fun. Just a very different environment. scrappy startup, fundraising, all different things, and very different people, very different mindset in there. So my eyes were open to a whole different type of buying, retail, corporate world, and that felt a lot more like me.
I want to go back to your experience with the company that worked at you when you were a buyer for the uniform
Mm-hmm.
company. I think it's a lot of people when they're thinking about making a career transition or they're really looking for like a specific title, there are potentially opportunities where they can either make a lateral move or it's something kind of like you said, not as glamorous. Do you look back on that time as something that you're glad you took the opportunity because you did it and were able to get that experience, or were you like that wasn't great? Like how did you navigate that knowing that it wasn't 100% what you were wanting when you made that transition?
I think stepping stones are really important. That was a stepping stone for me. It was a place where I actually had some great mentors and I learned a lot about how the industry works. And I felt more comfortable departing from that experience after not such a long time because I was able to contribute while I was there. But knowing that it wasn't my end all be all opportunity and having stayed probably too long, longer than I was fulfilled in my previous role, I just wasn't going to let myself kind of get stuck again.
Mm.
So I think absolutely go for it. If you can be present and still contribute at that company and keep your eyes open to what comes after. Everyone needs stepping stones.
Mm-hmm. I've
It's
heard that advice a
essential.
lot of like if you are at the point where you're no longer learning, no longer fulfill, no longer challenge, it's time to make a change in some way, shape, or form, regardless of what that change is. So I like that piece of advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Go ahead,
I was
Sarah.
gonna say on top of that change too, like it can be a small change. We've talked a lot about like seizing any sort of opportunities. So say that within that company you were like jazzed, but maybe you weren't super fulfilled in your position and you loved the company, you loved the people you work for. Like maybe there was other opportunities within that, but also too like holistically, if you're not bought into the product, if you're not bought into the business and you're just wanting change, then the
Mm-hmm.
changes, I think, exiting and finding something else, which I think is your
For sure.
So after the company that you recently were in within the timeline of we're talking about here most recently with purchasing for the baby and preschooling aged company, what was your favorite experience there, and or maybe your area that you learned the most about?
Oh, that's a good one. Let's see. Well, that is when I really got the full on experience of being a buyer. So I was going to really amazing trade shows and getting to see the huge breadth of products that exist in the baby space in particular, but just getting exposed to so many new companies. It's a space that's always innovating, and there's tons of new products that come on the market every year. And how you look at those brands and discern what is going to be a hit and what is filling a huge need and who's pitching you in a really interesting way. I think I really learned the art of retail and the feedback cycle and partnering with these entrepreneurs. That was probably my favorite part of the job. In retrospect, it's really clear now, but essentially
Mm-hmm.
we would have locals who would come in and show us their prototypes and ask for our feedback because we were really an influential retailer in this local space. So it mattered if we were interested in carrying the product and what we thought would be the right fit. So being a part of that process and really seeing how things would develop and unfold, and then sharing in the excitement when someone got featured in a big magazine or was flying off our shelves, and I got the opportunity to call and say, hey, we need a reorder. How fast can you get us these little giraffes or whatever the hit product would be, was really exciting. So seeing success from all sides. On the flip side of that, we certainly had the reverse scenarios, things that you really thought would work and would resonate that just fell flat. And, delivering that feedback and having to say, I think you need to go back to the drawing board, or it's just not working here, you've got to try somewhere else. That was always a hard conversation, but just as important. And so learning to have both the really wonderful conversations and the really challenging ones is something I learned and sort of grew up a bit
Mm-hmm.
throughout that role.
Mm-hmm.
nice. And I can imagine too working in a space where you're the fundamental or one of the fundamentals of the business is like education and especially new mothers, and you know that no matter what you're doing, you're helping somebody and it's not like just a product, it's like an aid for a parent. I'm
Mhm.
sure on some bad days, maybe that was like a little morsel of like, okay, this is worth it. Um, but that's me making assumptions. So then out of that, what was the next transition and into the next role and next phase of your career?
So from there, I switched industries. I stayed in retail, but I transitioned into the retail real estate development world, which is kind of the behind the scenes, not in the mall space per se, although that's in the same category, but with lifestyle centers. So those outdoor shopping centers that you see have these cool experiences outside of, chain stores and local specialty stores. And basically, I well, I eventually got an MBA, but that was like my first MBA experience. It was so eye-opening to be a part of this side of the industry. I worked in marketing for them, I worked in property management, and eventually I launched a new division there. But I worked for this Boston-based developer that had a ton of retail properties and was growing really quickly and wanting to really take everything that you know about retail in Boston, which is a cold city, in a new direction and create all of these open spaces with interesting things to do and public art and robust programming and tie that back into the retail experience. So that was a really fascinating time in my life where I was working on everything under the sun. It wasn't a huge company. It was a big company, but it wasn't at that point in time when I first joined so massive. And so I got to roll up my sleeves and get involved in a lot of different pieces of the puzzle and be exposed to on-site operations and working interdepartmentally and learning about leasing. There are just so many different facets that come into play when you're in that part of the industry. Construction, all the things that can delay a project, all of the things that you would never even know factor into opening a store. So I got this other perspective. Surprise, surprise. My favorite part was always working with the local retailers. So I got to do a lot of hand holding and cheerleading and supporting these local entrepreneurs who are opening a store for perhaps the first time. And I spent 7 years at this company at WS Development, this developer, and they were taking big swings at that point. They were starting to acquire properties around the country. They were expanding and growing the properties that they had. We were introducing a lot of new concepts into the market. So that was a really challenging and really fulfilling place to be, and started opening my eyes to other needs in the industry and other opportunities around retail. So eventually, I pitched them on the idea of retail incubation. And that was essentially pop-ups, developing new businesses in vacancies or in spaces that were underutilized. It wasn't something they were really doing in their portfolio. It was also very new to the retail world. People traditionally associated pop-ups with like a Halloween spirit store or something that, filled a big box. And yeah, it was a really negative association back then. So I had been following retail trends and thought, oh, wouldn't it be great if we could have something new in this mix that gets people excited and coming back again and again. And so I did get the green light to dabble at first on one property with pop-ups and then ultimately create this new division, the division of retail incubation, and bring it around to many properties in the portfolio and develop a blueprint around that, how it could work longer term. And that is how I was hooked on pop-ups. So we can fast forward if you'd like into the next chapter, but that was the beginning for me of UpNext.
I was going to say a note to past Allison. It's amazing that you pitched that, because I can imagine for a retail or I don't know, in my head, I think like commercial real estate, it's not always, I don't want to say innovative because they're innovative in their own way, but this is probably when you pitched it quite different. What was that experience like as far as kind of like the ideation process and then getting to the point of like feeling comfortable to share this idea that you had and then the taking off of it?
It was not easy for me. So I was very accustomed to speaking up with event ideas and different things that weren't such a huge commitment on a day-to-day basis. But I had been scarred from my corporate experiences. I had been bringing up innovative, kind of forward-thinking ideas since college, after college, all of these times, and they weren't always well received. Like, oh no, we don't do that. That, maybe if a higher up is interested, we can discuss that. There was a lot
Mm,
of boundary setting. And so I needed to really build up my confidence to make this ask. And I think it was after I had my first baby that I started to feel more emboldened, more confident in putting it out there and trying new ideas that had me directly tied into them, and
Mhm.
leaning into that whole mindset that if I don't ask, I'm never going to find out what's possible. And
Definitely.
so I definitely started small. I had already tested this concept and gotten permission, and each ask felt a little bit more comfortable along that trajectory. And so eventually I sort of teased the idea and started thinking about, well, who would backfill my role as a GM, and how would we make this transition so that I could have my time freed up to really work on this, and what does that look like, and can we build a team around it? So at first it was just me. It was uh, something that they did get behind and sort of paired up with sponsorships, which is a very different,
Mhm.
they are interconnected, but essentially they too were figuring out, where does this fit in the puzzle? It's part leasing, it's part marketing, it's part management and development. So there were just so many different interconnected pieces. And that is what I do today, however, outside of a corporate setting. So
mhm.
that eventually, getting that vote of confidence there and then seeing it take off is ultimately what helped me catapult into entrepreneurship, and have the confidence to go after it in my own way.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. If like a large commercial real estate company is agreeing that this is a good idea, you're like, I'm on to something. This
Yeah.
is this is
Mhm.
it. This is it.
Mhm. I love what you said too about having previous either pitches or meetings even like not go well, and your confidence was down going into that huge pitch of, then this is something you really truly believe in. You've done the research, you've planned end to end exactly how you could execute this, and then you're going in with, ooh, I've been burned in the past. Like, how is this going to come forward? And like reaching in to pull that confidence out to have a pitch like that is that, like, I'm kind of going through something similar in that way. So I'm like, oh, I having that confidence suppressed through previous experiences and then having to pull it out of you to get something done and to advocate for yourself is huge. Like, that's really, really impressive. So talk to us about the first initial phases of UpNext, what that was like, and how you were able to kind of get it off the ground, and maybe some interesting learnings along the first couple of years.
Sure. So I actually went full time into UpNext from the very beginning. I had been
Mm,
ideating around it for at least a good 6 months, and realizing that it was, if this was going to become my full-time work, it needed my full-time focus. And that's not for everyone. I had done the side hustle for 10 years. I had dabbled in
right.
all other businesses in a small way. But at this point in my life, I just had my second baby, really couldn't manage one more thing on the side. And so I took a bet on myself. I got, my husband's support. We really planned around this, and it was terrifying, and also the most exciting thing I could possibly have chosen to do. So I took that leap of faith. It was January, February of 20, and it was that finding the confidence to pitch entrepreneurially in a corporate setting. I had to
Mhm.
dig up that confidence every single day there forward. So I
Wow.
quickly learned this is going to be my state of being for a while, and
Mhm.
yet there was something in me that just was so passionate about it and so excited for what this opportunity could hold, that I was willing to call anyone and everyone to tell them about what I was doing. I had a lot of meetings. I had a lot of people staring back at me, not knowing what I was talking about, and just a lot of early learnings and a lot of feelings of isolation. I spent a lot of days trying to figure out what my path was going to be, who I could surround myself with, how I could do huge things with no money. I bootstrapped this company. I thought about fundraising, but I didn't know anything about that world. And ultimately, it was the right decision for me, but I definitely explored it heavily. So it took me about 6 months to find my way and bring in my first hire. and join an incubator, an accelerator, where I actually went, I had gone to grad school to get my MBA at Babson while I was still working for my previous employer. So I had built a little bit of a network there. And then they offered a women's accelerator program for new ventures that you had to be accepted into. I was, again, terrified. You had to pitch your concept. You had to do it in front of a room of people who you've never met before. So that was eye-opening. But I found my way in, and it was an amazing experience. It was all these other women who are going through similar stages of growth and figuring it out and supporting each other and taking these risks. And it just opened my eyes and my world up to the fact that there are so many people who are trying to do amazing things and just need support, just need each other, need some platform for getting the word out about what they're up to. And so it was really gratifying. It was really helpful at that point in my entrepreneurship journey to finally be surrounded by people that were going through something similar, because you can explain it to your friends or family, and if they haven't been there before, it's hard to identify with. So that was a wonderful experience. And from there, I just started picking up projects and doing partnerships and collaborations and innovating and meeting new brands, and again, just talking to everyone I possibly could, not knowing what would come of it, and having some really hard experiences along the way, but all of which has just taught me a tremendous amount. You have to be open to succeeding as you are to failing, and pick yourself back up and try again the next day. So
I think entrepreneurs are like the superheroes, the modern day superheroes. Because I'm like, I can't even imagine, I think sometimes it's a little glamorized, and there's this idea that it's like super fun. You're getting to do what you want with your day, and you're riding this wave of just energy. And it's like, I don't think it's actually like that. You get how many no's for how many yeses. And in your case, like, especially the first 6 months, this is probably where that like actress in you came out. It's like, I don't want to say fake it till you make it, because you knew exactly what you wanted and everything, but it's also like there's so much that you're learning. I don't think that you could point to any entrepreneur and say, like, did you have a really fun first 6 months? They'd be like, it was fun, but it was like it kind of sucked, like in its own beautiful, magical way. And like now you can laugh about it 6 years, 7 years later, but it's like at the time was probably quite isolating. So then we've talked about this before. At what point did you start to bring on additional team members and then almost take on that like managerial role along with owning the business? And what was that shift like for you?
So ironically, UpNext really started to grow more substantially during the pandemic, because we identified an opportunity, again, silver linings, in how many stores were forced to close. There had been so many challenges throughout that time where it wasn't safe to run a retail business. There wasn't a lot of appetite for shopping in person. And so as society was bouncing back, we were able to start filling those vacancies with pop-ups and partnering with municipalities to do retail incubator spaces and programs under our Project Pop-Up umbrella, something that we created specifically during that time, and seek out grant funding and work in all of these capacities that I never even imagined existed. So this was a totally new way of applying what we do and partnering with these new audiences. And that quickly grew, and I quickly could not manage that with my existing team of 2. So we started bringing on more team members part-time and creating this really amazing hybrid workforce, which, Sarah, you know everyone well, but a lot of our team is very entrepreneurial in nature and has their own business and works on it at UpNext in addition. And that has been a beautiful thing, because everyone has this entrepreneurial mindset where not afraid to roll up their sleeves and try something new and have a different lens about how it can all work. And it also allows us to work in person, remotely, have flexibility in our schedules, work and integrate everyone's lives, family life, business life, entrepreneurship, all rolled into one. So now we're a team of 6 to 7, all different schedules, a really amazing group. Definitely a learning curve for me to be doing more management in addition to working in the business, but working on the business. That is a shift. And it's a shift that I didn't necessarily see coming. It happened gradually. And I started to realize that more of my time was being dedicated to having breakout meetings and working on paperwork and all the things, HR. There are things that go into running a business that are glamorized, as you said, Sarah. There's so many pieces behind the scenes that take up a substantial amount of time and resources that you cannot let go to the wayside.
Definitely. And I've said it before, but I think that also too, this is like a little star for you, a big star, I guess. But from my personal experience, like working with the UpNext team has been such a joy. And I think that, yes, it's all of us on like an individual level, like having these skills and really enjoying what we like, but it's also the environment that you create. So I really look up to you and respect you for that, because I've told Ellen and I've said it on the podcast, but like you just create such an open and inviting and warm space, but also too, like you have high expectations and the team respects that. And we all work together so well. And I think that it always comes up to like who's overseeing everything. And so whether you see that for yourself or not, I really respect that in you. So thank you, Allison. You're the best.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that, Sarah. That really means a lot. I think I've had enough negative experiences in my years of work life to know what I don't want. And so you definitely have to be conscious about creating an environment that is welcoming and supportive. And I'm not saying I get it right every day. There's certainly times where something gets overlooked, but at the end of the day, as long as you're listening to people and making sure that no one feels that they can't come to you at any given point to talk something through, that's a win for me.
Sure. Okay, I have a question for both of you now. So my question. Well, actually, let me tee it up here for a second. So Sarah has sung your praises, Allison. I mean, she said it just a couple of minutes ago, but I mean, I've heard through and through how much she's enjoyed working with you. Jill has said the same thing. I mean, your passion and professionalism is like tangible, like literally through my screen. Is there, so kind of a similar question for both of you, but Allison, I think culture in general around companies is something that is so fascinating to me. And now as someone in the job market is something that I highly, highly weigh against my decision to apply, or even is this a company I want to work for? So is there something that you have made a conscious decision in always including or doing related to culture? And then to Sarah, what's your favorite aspect about the culture at UpNext?
You go first, Allison.
Let's see. I think this sounds little, but it sort of sets the tone for how we try to approach things. We try to celebrate small wins, large wins too, of course, but celebrating small wins allows us to keep that supportive, gratitude-filled day-to-day mindset. I think it's really easy to get into the weeds of thinking, oh, this didn't go according to plan, or I wish I had done this differently, or why didn't that go differently? And instead, when you can focus on what those things are that keep you going, that you worked hard at, even if it was a few extra followers on social media, whatever it may be, that is something that I've tried to ingrain in our meetings and our in-person gatherings, having a little bit of enthusiasm and cheers and extra celebratory moments has become part of the UpNext culture. And so again, just celebrating those little wins goes a long way. I think it's just one small aspect. I don't know if you can tell that about a company overtly when you're deciding whether or not it's the right fit for you, but you can probably gather from how people on the team interact with each other. If you're seeing them in a setting in their natural environment, what is really going on? Can you get a pulse on how they spend their time together? What do you think, Sarah?
Definitely. I was going to say, I feel like I was sitting here thinking, and I was like, there's a lot of reasons. And that's definitely one of them. Having that like celebratory culture. We have friends that say ABC, always be celebrating. And I think that that's so important because it's such an easy thing to let go to the wayside where it's like, oh, we just have so much at hand. Let's not celebrate any accomplishment, or if we celebrate big ones. And I think that that's huge. And it's like we laugh a lot, and I think that like it also plays into it. We know how to be serious in the moments that require us to be serious, but we also know how to have fun and be playful and care about each other. And that was one thing I was going to say, is that it's palpable. You can feel when somebody's being genuine and when somebody cares. And I don't know if you've ever picked up on this, and now you probably will, Allison, but anytime we get on like our one-to-one, you're always like, how are you? And it's not just in the sense of like, how are you? Let's get on with this meeting. It's like, no, genuinely, how are you? What's new in your life? How was your weekend? Like, we take the 5 minutes at the beginning of every call. Sometimes it's 15 or so, but we always we always take the time to like check in on each other. And so it's you meeting people with where they're at, I think goes a long way. And that's not even just for like the, manager role. It's just on like any playing field. Like, we're all the same. We're all going through life together. Like, we have lives outside of this. And I think that because you show up that way, the rest of the team shows up that way. And that's so important, because nowadays, especially in a remote culture, it's easy to forget that we're people and we have lives outside of this little box that we're all staring into. So I think that that's probably a long-winded answer, but I think it's just the seeing people and meeting people with where they're at. And then I feel like I'm able to just show up wholly, and I'm excited because of that. So I don't know if that helps you, Allison, oh my gosh, Allison, Ellen. sometimes Riverside will call Ellen Allen. It's so funny.
I hate that. Hate.
Your alter ego.
Yeah, this is Alan. Oh my gosh, we called you Ed, but it should be Alan. Anyways, I don't know if you can pick up on that in like an interview, but I guess more so if you have multiple people on the interview and just like the way that they interact on their side.
But it is technically it is a small thing, but it's actionable where you can literally do it every day, even in every meeting. And then for that to compound, and like you said, it sounds like that's been a significant impact to the culture at UpNext. And it is something small you can do every day, but the impact that it creates is huge. I mean, we just heard both of you speak volumes to that. So cool. I had that question drumming up in my head, and I was like, okay, when do I get to ask this? So perfect. Just a little sprinkle in there. Allison, one question I have for you kind of before we get into the big success question is, we have a lot of listeners, a lot of friends who are experiencing motherhood for the first time or maybe the third time. And as someone who is hoping to have a family one day, and something that is on my mind a lot when I think about making that decision is, will I be able to do that and work? Because working to me is important. It's something that ideally I would like to continue doing when I do have a family. What was your experience with that like? And what advice do you have to someone who is either, like I said, a first time mom thinking about becoming a mom, or on baby number 3?
It's a great question. I think there is a huge shift in society now for the better. There's so much more opportunity to work remotely, to have flexibility, to create a role with a schedule on your own terms, and that you should not be afraid to ask for that. I think that can go a tremendously long way in building a life that's sustainable, that doesn't burn you out, because work or motherhood, either of those things can quickly burn you out. Never mind the combination. And I have 3 children, so I've had 3 very different maternity leave experiences. I had sort of this narrow window of time when my first was born, and I was working in a corporate role, and I think I asked for a half day on my first day back to transition to daycare, and the answer was no. You better just show up in the office the whole day. And that was a bit of a shock to the system, but I've been conscious of that moving forward. I've been able to thankfully lean on my team and craft ways of being there for my children, being present in a way that I never could have previously. But at the same time, over the 6 years that I've been running my own company, things have changed. The world has changed. Pandemic pushed us in all different directions. We have all of these tools at our disposal to work from anywhere in many roles, obviously not all, but don't be afraid to ask for what you need, and be open to the fact that that will probably change throughout the course of adjusting to parenting. You have to show up and be present in so many different ways as your children grow. And so that needs to be reflected in how you integrate work and life together. So ask for what you need.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, that's so true. Allison, big question for you. How do you define success for yourself?
I define success in terms of fulfillment. And it's funny, I was reading an interview that I did very early on in the UpNext days, and it had the same question.
Mm-hmm.
And my definition hasn't changed. I think it's fulfillment in terms of how you feel every day, your happiness level, but also what feels gratifying and like you're making a difference, large or small. What allows you to live the life that you want. And so that includes financial success and being aware that these things won't necessarily happen all at once. I think it's almost impossible for them to fully align because they're always changing. So if you finally get, the revenue that you're trying to hit, then something else might fall out of alignment. But just being able to maintain enough balance in that definition of success for yourself to continue to be motivated, to find joy in your work and your day to day. You have to enjoy the process because, cliche as it sounds, success is not a destination. You are never going to reach it. It has to evolve as you go through life. And so just keep defining and redefining and checking in with yourself.
Ooh. Success is not a destination.
That's a good
That's the
one.
first time we've heard that one. That is a good one. And it's so true because I feel like sometimes this idea of success is like once you get there, you're going to feel this like epiphany and it's going to be this magical experience. And then it's like, and then what?
So true.
Then you fixate on the next form of success. But like in your case, it's kind of it's an umbrella, if you will. And it's not going to be achievable every day. Maybe you have one day where like your mental health is really, really in check, or the financial health is really, really in check. But like to have all of that at once keeps you something. It's something that you're always working towards, which I think is a good way of defining success. So
Absolutely.
that was a good one. I think we
Yeah,
should just end there.
I know, like, let that settle in my brain for a moment. Damn.
Yeah. Let's head into some rapid fire. Allison,
Let's do it.
what is one thing that you have to have in order to live through the workday?
Coffee, very basic. I don't get enough sleep, so I need to be caffeinated throughout the day.
We should start keeping a coffee tally as to the number of people that say coffee to get through.
We need to get a coffee sponsorship is what we need to get, Ellen.
I like that. Next question, Allison. What is your favorite way to unwind after work?
Let's see. This also feels cliche, but a glass of wine, a nice dinner, some time with my family, although it depends what we're doing. We have a lot of after school activities and shuffling around, but when I do get those windows of time to just kick back and relax and talk, that is my favorite way to unwind as best I can.
It's not dancing with the kids like you had to do at Christmas.
Oh. We did have a dance party in the kitchen last night.
That's sweet.
That goes up there on the list.
There we go. Let's see. Okay, you've had a lot of experience in corporate. What is one of the best benefits that you have? But then on the other side, what's a pet peeve of corporate life?
I don't know if this counts as corporate, but when I was in college, I worked over the summer at a spa, and the benefit was having a taste of all the services so I could speak to them. So I had a massage and a facial, and I mean, you name it. I had the most luxurious summer imaginable. Incredible benefit.
Oh, yeah.
That's the best one so far. That takes the cake.
Yeah, maybe I should think about going back there part-time. No. And then, what was the next question?
Corporate pet peeve.
Corporate pet peeve. A lot of conversations that involve, let me bubble that up. Why don't you bubble that up? Basically, seek the next level of approval, but in this peppy way that's not the reality of the conversation.
You're like, yay, more red tape.
Yes.
More time, more documentation, more meetings, all the things.
Bubble that up and then we'll circle back.
Right. Oh my God. Oof, that's a heavy hitter sentence right there.
If somebody said that, I'd be like, go away. You need to leave.
But like, that's enough. That's enough. Last question for you. Do you prefer in-person or remote work?
Oh, I have to choose one. I prefer in person. I definitely get energy from being around people. I love our team days in person. I think remote work makes that possible, though. I think I'm so glad it exists, and I couldn't run the company without it. but my preferred state is in person and together.
Agreed. The team is so fun. I need to get back up there. I was thinking
Okay.
April, but
You guys, like the FOMO over here is out of control with how cool and wonderful.
Yeah.
And I'm appreciating from afar. That's what I'll say.
you can go visit
Ellen,
your
we're going to
family.
find you that too. Don't worry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, Allison, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to include everywhere that you can find Allison and UpNext. If you find yourself in Boston, make sure to check up all of their pop-ups. Amazing things that the team and myself are working on over there. So good things in the queue too. So thank you again, Allison, for joining us. It's been an absolute joy.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, everyone.
Absolutely.
You can find us on TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, of course, all the places. And if you're enjoying the show, give us a thumbs up on Spotify. Thank you, everyone. Remember, at the end of the day, it's literally just a job. Have a wonderful Monday. We'll see you next week.